the big stories to your bottom line. The path can be unpredictable. But with the right insights, you can see where the bend in the road will lead. Business on BBC News. Make the connection.
Live from Washington, this is a BBC News special report on the G20 summit in Delhi. World leaders descend on the Indian capital for the high-level summit. On the agenda, global food security, climate change, trade, and of course, the war in Ukraine. But with two notable no-shows, Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping, the war in Ukraine looms large. Hello, I'm Carl Nasman. Presidents and prime ministers from around the world are gathering in Delhi, India for this year's G20 summit. They're set to tackle all kinds of topics: sustainability, economic growth, and climate change, among a few, after a year of dangerous and destructive weather across the globe. But the absence of both Russian President Vladimir Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping highlights the rising tensions over Russia and its war in Ukraine at this year's gathering. Both leaders sent their foreign ministers in their place. It's the first time that Xi has missed the gathering. The event will highlight India Prime Minister Narendra Modi's attempt as host to promote the country as a major global power and himself as a dominant world leader ahead of a crucial election next year. We're going to take a look at why the G20 gathering is so important and how the decisions made in Delhi this weekend can impact you and the rest of the world. But first, what exactly is the G20? Well, the Group of 20 is a bloc of the world's 20 largest economies that was formed 2 years after the 1997 Asian financial crisis in response to Thailand devaluing its currency and the resulting deep recession in much of East Asia. Originally, the G20 was a forum for the finance ministers and central bank governors to discuss global economic and financial issues. But by 2008, heads of state and government began meeting to address the 2007 financial crisis. And then by 2009, the G20 summit became an annual forum focused not just on economic issues, but sustainable development, health, environment, and anti-corruption. The G20 is comprised of 19 countries plus the European Union, and together its member nations account for an estimated 86% of the world's gross domestic product and 2/3 of its population. The theme of this year's G20 in India is One Earth, One Family, One Future, showcasing a focus on climate change. The countries that comprise the G20, they account for 80% of the world's emissions, measuring that in 2021. And leaders are facing growing urgency to tackle what has been a summer of turbulent weather in the Northern Hemisphere, torrential rains, record heat, as well as damaging wildfires, including where they are currently gathering in New Delhi, which over the past 2 months has experienced torrential flooding, landslides, and extreme heat. But this year, Russia's war in Ukraine looms over the summit and may overshadow the agenda. Russia and China are already thought to have disputed the wording of a draft statement criticizing Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And India's economy has become ever more entwined with Russia since the war started. That's because India is a major importer of Russian oil and weapons. It's believed 85% of India's weaponry is supplied by Russia, according to some estimates. And then there's the glaring absence of Russian President Putin, who has not said why he is skipping the gathering, although he does face an arrest warrant from the International Criminal Court related to his invasion of Ukraine. India, however, not a signatory to that statute, which would require them to arrest the leader. Modi said he spoke with Putin by phone last week. Now, India is looking to put aside all these disagreements over Ukraine, hoping that they won't derail concerns of the global south and developing countries. Our correspondent, Samira Hussain, has more.
Prime Minister Rishi Sunak landed in India.